Hello, my name is Tabs and welcome to episode 115 of the Grove podcast. Now, I hope you're all doing well, have had good weekends, and happy that Premier League football is back and made all the very better by that crucial season opening win at Old Trafford. And for those that complained that Arsenal were a bit too controlling, too slow, too boring, well, you wanted more open games and you got one yesterday. So how's that working out for you? And I must admit, I prefer it a bit less open, but we'll see. We'll talk about that a bit later and why it was and so on. So, and joining me today to pick the bones out of that imperfect yet very pleasing win against the rejuvenated Man United, as well as to preview the Leeds game later on in the show, is Jamie. How are you? And did you enjoy that more open Arsenal?
So about that. It's 3 points at United. It's a nice way to start the season. Let's start on the positive, shall we? Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. It's not all I'm going to say. We've got a little bit of time of a podcast to fill, haven't we? But for now, for my opening gambit, without going any further, that's what I'm concentrating on.
No, good. I think we're of like minds today. So look, and a good job you said that. Look, we've picked up a fair few listeners over the summer. So thank you for being here. For those that are new, and obviously thanks to our regulars, we really appreciate it. And so if you're new to our review and preview pods, we sort of have a general format, and it isn't just Jamie giving a one-liner and then we bugger off. It's we pick our highlights and lowlights from the game that we're reviewing. We go through the lineup, our thoughts on the game and how we played, and we pick out and discuss key moments, and then we sort of bring it all together with some stats and some quotes. And for the preview, we pick out what we're looking forward to and not looking forward to, how we're going to approach the game, what sort of team we'll put out, have a bit of a look at the opposition before making very wild and mostly incorrect predictions. So, and on with the show and with the format as it goes, we start off with our highlight and low light. So Jamie, what was your highlight and low light from yesterday's Man United game?
Highlight is just the goal, really, and the win and taking that. It's really hard to pick a highlight, if I'm completely honest, because I didn't feel there was that much in the game that was that entertaining for me. I'm tempted to say David Raya's save, which I thought was, the second half one was absolutely outstanding. The one from the Cunha header, I think it was.
Mbeumo header.
Yeah, Mbeumo header then. So that's absolutely superb stop. But I also don't like picking a goalkeeper's save as the highlight of a game, because I feel like that's a bit much, really, isn't it? But it probably sums up a little bit about, I guess, the all-round performance. Low light for me, I think probably, and I hate to say it, but it's probably the lack of ways that or the overall performance in trying to get Gyökeres into the game. I'm really struggling with the words as to how I want to phrase this, because I don't want to blame Victor Gyökeres. It's his first Premier League game. No. He had an abbreviated pre-season with us. He had one decent pre-season game, another game where he showed a bit of effort but wasn't that effective. And I don't want to kind of hang him out in any way, shape or form. Not that he's particularly going to care about me. But he is being hung out by a few people. And I think that's just more due to the way that we didn't ultimately get him into the game in the ways that we perhaps could have, especially in a game like that, actually, where I think perhaps actually it was the style of game that he might have been meant to have been, more suited to. But I think we did kind of struggle to make that happen for him. He'll have better performances, I'm absolutely certain, but that's probably just the slight low light for me, is the fact that we didn't seem to be getting much out of him.
No, I agree. Yeah, I can't understand why you would call out Gyökeres on that. I mean, you don't buy Gyökeres for him to change his style of play to adapt to us.
No.
We have to adapt to him. And we'll touch on it later. And we have to adapt to him. So he's doing what he does. And look, there's going to be nerves. It's your first game in the Prem. It's Man United away. Yes, he trod on the ball, but he was no exception to crapness yesterday in various parts. So and stuff. So you're right. I mean, I had our low light. I put in general just our attacking performance. We'll touch on that a bit later, which really wasn't very, very good. But I think there are some reasons for that. But yeah, I wouldn't hang Gyökeres out yesterday. Yeah, for yesterday, that wasn't on him. at all, and so on. So, in terms of my highlight, it's a highlight for me, but it's sort of having a dig at someone. And for me, my highlight was Odegaard sticking. I actually put here, I haven't deleted my notes, but I had Odegaard sticking two fingers up to Tony Adams, but I thought that was a bit harsh. So it was my Odegaard showing what nonsense Tony Adams was speaking about the captaincy. Because, look, we all love TA. He's an Arsenal legend, won big trophies, has a statue, and is universally loved by a certain generation. I'm going to say that because obviously you've got a newer generation who have not familiar with his what he did for the club. But he's very old school in terms of his current thinking on the captaincy. And I thought, what Odegaard did yesterday when all those around him were flagging, were underperforming, not winning their duels, not making themselves available. I think Odegaard really stepped up and stood out. And he just seemed to be everywhere for the full 96 minutes, supporting the team sort of where it was needed, trying to drive the team forward. But he was, he won more duels than Declan Rice for yesterday, and it sort of just showed that he was making up for others' failures yesterday. And look, he could have played a pass or two better, could have made a couple of better decisions, but that happens in every game. But yesterday he really did what was needed to get us over the line, to support the team, and and he could just tell things weren't right. And I think as a captain, that was a real captain's performance, and he really stood up. And Rice, Tony Adams called out Rice, and Rice was one of our biggest underperformance yesterday. So, again, old school thinking, not going to dig him out, but, the way captaincy works these days has moved on. And look, Odegaard has now reached a level with another Arsenal legend, Patrick Vieira, in terms of both having 71 wins as captains for the Arsenal. So, before we move on to the game, any thoughts on what TA said? About Odegaard not being the right leader?
I adore Tony Adams, right? He's one of my absolute heroes. I grew up with him as my Arsenal captain, and he always will be my Arsenal captain. Yeah. That is who I think of when I think of an Arsenal captain. Today in a innocuous conversation in an Arsenal football shirt collectors group, somebody referred to the fact that Havertz wore long sleeves and everyone else wore short sleeves, and said,
I noticed that.
Gone, the old tradition when it used to be the captain made the choice, and that was TA that I heard say that, and it just made me think of TA actually. And I was thinking about TA and his leadership and so on. But if you want to know what kind of captain TA was at times in his career, he was also a man who basically said to the rest of his teammates, throw in, it's kind of accounted for by the people, throw in the towel for the league and just play up for the cup because it's easier, because we can't manage to do both. And he was one of the main people that wasn't able to do both. So, also very inspiring in other ways, TA, and the way that he dug himself out of the place that he was in during those years when he had that attitude. But he is no way peerless. And he did use that conversation to aggrandise himself, as well as he then bemoaned the fact that he had the England captaincy removed, and that was the wrong decision. Alan Shearer was apparently a bad England captain, etc., which might have been, but I think he's as you say, he's very old school. He's very one-dimensional, I think, in his thinking, and he said some absolute bollocks down the years. He's also hit the nail on the head a couple of times, I'm sure, as well. But he has said some bollocks, and there is also that thing with TA, and you get it from a few pundits. TA's got that failed management thing about him as well, and he likes to question all the ones who aren't very good in management. Really love to question the manager and love to question Arteta, right? And TA loves to, and let's face it, the man didn't make a very good stab at being a manager whatsoever. His time at Wycombe will not be fondly remembered, and he has been in some right ropey establishments down the years and not performed brilliantly with them. Same as Paul Merson, one of my favourite players. The same as Thierry, to be completely frank, as well. Who again is another
he came to my mind.
Criticise the manager, and if you think about most of them are somewhat failed. The ones who are most outspoken in pinning it on the manager and saying the manager isn't, and they'll never do anything because of this. So I, again, absolutely adore him. Will never not adore him. Would love to have well, Jesus, I was about to say I'd love to have a pint with him, but I wouldn't. That means he's off the wagon, and that's not a laughing matter. But no, but more my idiocy there is the laughing matter.
Yes.
I'd love to share a coffee with the man. And you know, he was an inspiring leader. He does know a thing about leadership more than I do, probably on a football pitch. However, I don't think that he's the be all and end all of opinions on captaincy at the Arsenal.
Yeah, no, indeed. So anyway, the main thing was the fact that Odegaard, I think, was a standout performer from our outfield players.
Well,
yesterday, I think he had a really good game and stood out. Not perfect because no one was, but out of that lot, he was the driving force, and I think a big part of why we won yesterday. So talking about the players and the lineup. So it was a Ryan goal, and then there were a couple of big questions there. First off, if we're starting at the back, who is going to be our sort of left back, right back partnership? So we went with White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Calafiori. Midfield is going to be the midfield: Zubimendi, Rice, Odegaard, and up front Martinelli, Saka. And the second big question was who's going to start, Gyökeres or Havertz. So yeah, how did you feel about that particular lineup? You know, were you happy that we went with those left back, right back combination and Gyökeres?
I mean, we talked about it, 10 days or so before the game, right?
Yeah.
And I said at the time, the two big question marks for me were at fullback and then at striker, and I would be inclined to go, a little bit warm ahead with Gyökeres, actually, more so than thinking it was the right decision. I could go either way on that, but the key ones for me were left and right back, and I felt that Timber was the better man to take on the width that they were likely to have, and that kind of one-on-one defending. I felt he would probably be the man instead of Ben White, and then similarly as well against Mbuemo, I personally felt it should be MLS, because Ricardo likes to get himself forward and isn't necessarily he doesn't like being turned. And I do think he requires a little bit more covering for than other players. So, but the selection of Ricardo Calafiori had a fantastic impact on the game. Let's face it, and I thought he played well overall. And I actually think MLS, when he came on, didn't look as composed as he normally did at all, and actually was a little bit more exposed. So yeah, it was interesting selections. I mean, I'm never one to massively call out selections as being wrong, apart from when somebody ends up filling in at right back that you don't expect to be there. But otherwise, it's a strong team. It should be able to go up to United and win the game. Simple as that. And it no surprise, it was the lineup that we ended the friendlies on, right?
No, exactly. I mean, yeah. On Calafiori, if we just touch on him, just to touch on his performance, he was. You bring him in, and I think Arteta really wants him in the team and really likes him. He really pushed for him last season, so I think he's going to try and get him in wherever possible. He played all the friendlies, when he was fit to play, and I think he just provides that something different, that's something extra that we don't have. We jokingly say he's a chaos merchant. I mean, he's far better than just a chaos merchant. He's a bloody good footballer, but he's an attacking threat. Yes, he needs to still work in his defensive play, but this is where Rice's poor performance makes other people's job harder. So Odegaard was filling in for Rice, in that double pivot potentially areas with Zubimendi having to come back more, but also with Calafiori, he's emboldened to go forward because he's got the likes of, on the left-hand side, Nelly, who defends well, and Rice, who defends well that area. So therefore, when Rice isn't performing up to scratch, the fact that we know that Calafiori's defensive fallibilities, or whatever the word is there, he covers up for that, and he's allowed to that. So he's going to go, well, I'm not expecting Rice to be off his game today, so I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. Nelly's there. So I think that's why some of these defensive things, people think it's on him, but actually a lot of the time, the failings of what people call failings of a particular player are down to actually the rest of the team not doing their job that enables another player to do theirs. So
I didn't think he was massively at fault for. I mean, I did think
but people call out him defensively, Mbuemo one-on-one and behind him and stuff like that. But if he's going far forward,
and this all player, he's not good at that. He is. No. If you turn him, if you get a run at him, he's not good in that set. And that's my entire problem with the left back. I don't. I don't. I fundamentally have an issue with him as a left back. Right,
Yeah.
this is something I've been saying since last season.
But then he's
I know
mostly
you're
not.
gassed about the man, but like, and
He's
I
not
think he's
there as a traditional left back though, and that's what I'm trying to say. So that's all
He's
you.
not. He's not.
Yeah,
He's a left centre back in an expansive 3-man back line. But
yeah,
that's what he did for Italy,
yeah,
and that's what he'd
yeah.
do for me if I was playing with a 3-man back or a
But,
5-man, but
yeah,
a flexible wing back kind of system. But we
yeah.
don't, and this is where I still have concerns because we don't play a system that suits him.
Yeah.
But regardless, and then also we don't play ultimately with as defensive a left eight maybe that would do that job as well.
Mm,
Maybe if we play with the double six, then that makes a big difference as well. But we don't. So
mm,
I do have massive concerns
mm,
about throwing him up against players of the quality of a Brian Mbeumo,
mm.
especially when. And I got more concerned immediately when Mbeumo seemed to be coming out with absolute rocket fuel coming out of his
Yeah.
backside. The man was
And there's a lot of room for the rocket fuel there
the
as
man
well.
was possessed, and then you're even more concerned when they've got an Amad Diallo on top of that
Yeah.
as well. When you're going, Christ on a bike,
Mm,
this is a lot to deal with
yeah.
for that side of the pitch. And as you
Yeah.
say, rising form, and maybe it works. And I think it will work out a lot more in other games. I just
Mm,
feel like in those games where I think somebody is going to have the ball a bit more and is going to be going at him.
mm,
For me, that's an MLS game, and that's why I
mm.
felt before the game. But it worked out.
Yeah.
There's no doubt it worked out, and that's not a when I say that's what I thought I
Mm.
would have done,
Yeah.
as I say a million times,
Yeah.
I've never felt that I know better than Mikel
No,
Arteta.
of course. And
I don't.
yeah.
It's just my expectation and my comfort
Yeah.
levels
Yeah.
with a Calafiori in that game are way more lacking. I want to see him go up against probably kind of 12, 13 teams in the league that haven't got somebody that's going to have as much of the ball as an Mbeumo and aren't quite as good as a
Mm,
direct runner as an Mbeumo. But
mm,
that's just the kind of game where I'd have loved to have seen
mm.
MLS start and be a bit more,
Yeah.
um,
No, I
a bit
could.
more reserved.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think, like we said, we discussed on that on the post Athletic Bilbao pod is, and talking about our options, and again, it's like pods of players. So I see Timber and Calafiori more of a pod because one provides that more defensive security. Gabriel can go over and cover while Calafiori goes up, or you have White and MLS. MLS, White can do his thing, and MLS provides the defensive cover. But then maybe the other pod that we miss out there is the Rice, Nelly, Calafiori one, because between those three they've got everything covered. So yeah, it's just interesting how they say it. But I think he's an Arteta favourite. I mean, he said Arteta on Calafiori. He said he has the capacity to change the energy. He comes into this room and he changes the energy in the room. Unsurprisingly, if you've seen him, he changes the energy in the team. He has an aura. He has a presence that is special. And then he's a player that is very unpredictable for the opponent because he can occupy very different spaces. He can do things in and around the box, in the middle, in the opposition box. That is very difficult to predict. So very happy with him. So again, it's such a contrast to what MLS offers. So it's interesting. But yeah, I think he's
I mean,
big
even
on him.
the track
He's
back
big on
where
him.
in the opposition box, right, where he got the interception in the opposition box,
Mm,
little bits like that.
mm,
There were contributions in the game that I really rated from him. I
mm.
thought he had a good game.
Yeah.
And I
Oh
thought he
yeah.
was actually. I think when MLS came on, actually MLS was fine, but not
Yeah.
fantastic.
No.
So as I say, absolutely not second guessing him here or saying anything would have been different. It just surprised me,
Yeah.
and I think for the similar reason to what you said about those kind of pods, if you like, that
Mm.
it surprised me to go with Ben White as well.
Mm.
And I guess one of the
Yeah.
things you might say is we think we're good enough that if we go out with our two most competent, aggressive fullbacks, our
Mm-hmm.
aggressive guys that are going to get up the pitch, then we are going to push those wingers back because that is the other option. If
Yeah.
somebody's got really good width and you go, no, and particularly when you're reliant on wing backs as they are, and you go, no, we're going to make them defend with a back five rather than a back three because we're going to aggressively come up there and we're going to make those wingers then pull themselves inside and form a bigger midfield so that they've actually got a front man instead of a front three. That is an option to defend, is to defend on the front foot, right?
Mm.
I have no issue with that at all. But unfortunately, with the lack of control that we had on the game, that wasn't really an option for us in the game. But I can understand if that was the approach. And I don't
Well,
disagree with it. I really like that as an approach. I've always enjoyed the what was it, Roberto Martinez, who when he was at Swansea said you can't score when you don't have the ball, so we just have all the ball all the time. We don't bother with defence, but we just keep hold of the ball. I'm paraphrasing massively here.
Yeah,
But that
but
was
we get the
effectively
drift.
the content of his
Yeah.
interview, and he said it on numerous occasions. I quite like that stuff. It's just
Well,
ultimately, I don't think I saw exactly what he was trying to do, which is
I guess, well, that's the thing. You may have the tactics, but the players have to execute. And yesterday we were not executing
and you know
in
when
the part.
United's reaction, and
Yeah.
United came
Well,
out the blocks absolutely on all cylinders. Like not just Embuemo,
yeah.
as a team, they looked a hell of a
Mm.
lot better than they have in a long time. And in particular, in the wide areas, they looked really, really good and really
Yeah.
combative, really energised. And as a team, that's actually the main difference from them from last season to this season for me is they looked really energetic, really
Mm.
energised. They didn't look like they were running through treacle, and as a result, some of our players did.
Yeah, indeed. And so as for the rest of the team's fine, but also what was great yesterday, just looking at that bench, Kepa, Timber, Lewis Skelly, Mosquera, Marino, Wineri, Trossard, Madueke, Havertz. Just that's such a great, the left back, right back options. So those four, any four, play them, whatever. But then also attacking options, to change the game if needed. Wineri, Trossard, Madueke, Havertz, and a couple of them came on and were important just to hold it out. So I think just looking at just that squad thing that we talked about, it's just really positive to see that. So that's a great first 11. But hey, if things don't work out, we've got these other guys that actually can make a difference. I think the only other issue, unfortunately, I think Norgard. He had a slight knock on his knee. Otherwise, I think he would have been on the bench for either Trossard or Mosquera. And I think, it was a double shame because I think this was the perfect game for him to come on at like 60 minutes to for Rice to sort of just shut up shop and be that shield and double pivot with Zubimendi. I think he would have been a perfect, just would have suited him down to the ground. It was just unfortunate.
But I will say, Marino came on and was really good because he didn't kind of do huge amounts, wasn't flashy, but I'd like to see his stats on duels because certainly I remember at least 2 duels that he dominated and a header that he won, and just every time the ball was around him, it seemed like he was the man who was going to be on it, or he was going to be aggravating enough that he was slow in progress, and he just did that sort of job that I think he's meant to do. He just seemed to do not really nicely, and that was quite that felt like a good sub for us at that particular point in time. And I was a little bit worried about it, even though Rice hadn't had a good game. I think just sort of worrying that Marino might not be the man to come on the pitch at that particular point in time. And actually, as the his involvements came about, I felt like in every single one of them, he was coming off better off.
Well, this is part of this squad, and this is part of trusting the squad. Okay, Rice isn't having a great day. Marino isn't a like for like, but he will do a job, and he's fit, healthy, can get in there, and so on. So I think it's great. And then you looked at our team, and then you looked at their team. You think, if you look at the respective lineups, you just think our midfield is going to dominate their midfield and defence. Okay, granted, their attack has improved and so on, but and even then our defenders should that and we all predicted 3-1 wins or 2-1 or whatever. And you look at that and said,
I predicted a 1-goal win. That is
okay. But you only went for 2-1 because all of us picked 3-1. So
I mean, it might have been part of the reason, yeah. But nonetheless, I got a 1-goal win. So I reckon, are we going to keep score on this for the season? I think.
Absolutely. I'm starting the spreadsheet, but
yes, I think I get like 1 point for correct margin of victory.
I'm not going to that level
for correct margin and correct victory.
Yeah. It's correct score and correct result. I'm not bothering with all the rest of it.
That's rubbish. That is. I'm not happy about that at all.
We'll see. But we'll get to Old Trafford. But Old Trafford is our kryptonite. We'll get onto that in a second. But you've been alluding to it, but not the performance. What were your overall thoughts on the game, on the result? We'll touch on things like Old Trafford, the performance, and then maybe a special word for the ref. But yeah, just start off with what was your general just sort of feeling post game, and just the result.
There was a lot of thank God for that. To be honest, that was probably the biggest thing. definitely a massive sigh of relief. A feeling that I was actually not entirely displeased by the fact that I didn't get home from a festival in time to be able to go to the pub and watch it with people, because that would have been a bit maudlin. So instead, I just about caught the majority of it on the TV and a little bit on phone before we got back. And then also a massive relief that the wonderful new white kit that I have definitely fallen in love with and want to go and buy hasn't started off with an awful match at United, aside from the fact that I don't think the black letters work on it and it should really be the red ones. But other than that, that was I mean, overall, I think performance-wise, we were fine. We've talked a fair few bits and bobs about it that you take out of it, that you go, the defence took a little while to settle in. I think they were taken by surprise. We looked, as in general, just taken by surprise, I think, by what United threw at us. I think it was surprising how well they or how resilient they were to going a goal down as well. And I think we felt a bit shocked by that, and we looked a little bit slow. And the new boys looked a little bit like they have a lot more to do to completely gel and completely read everybody else. And that's all things that are going to happen, but it felt almost a little bit like we're still in pre-season mode and they weren't. And that was a little bit concerning for me. But after a little while, the defence settled in. Saliba ended up having a great game. Gabriel had a solid game. David Raya had a brilliant game. And there were a few other good performances throughout the team. And I'd say Odegaard was decent. The main thing is, I don't think, as much as you can be a little bit doom and gloom about the fact we didn't create a great deal, we were on the back foot a bit, our possession stats are probably awful. I haven't looked at all of the stats for the game, but I imagine they're pretty low. We didn't show any kind of real control over the game whatsoever. But they didn't really do a great deal either, I didn't feel. They had 2 fantastic opportunities, and other than that, it's a lot of half chances, a lot of stuff where they couldn't get it over the line, and ultimately we did enough, and we had the ability to see out that game, even if it didn't always feel like we were going to. So for me, I take just those positives and go, look, it's 3 points at United on a game where we did not turn up in the same way that they did, really energised and looking to go and win it.
No, I agree. And look, first and foremost, the win and the 3 points was the most important thing. With our tough fixtures, I think it was vital to get the win. The first 6 fixtures, if you don't get this, you're on the back foot already. Yes, everything's against you, and just needed to get the win anyhow. And to take 3 points from a place where we traditionally struggle, we take it and we move on. And if we get the performance, great. If not, no matter. We just take the learnings and improve. And look, I think it's understandable that for such a tough game, for your first game of the season, that you might not be as fluid as you like. As you say, we've got new players settling in and so on. And this was the game that was meant to be the narrative game. I mean, this was all set up to be prime time, Super Sunday, rejuvenated Man United show. Gyökeres versus Sesko. Are Arsenal proper contenders? Is Arteta going to win anything this year? It was just all set up. It was a sunny day. There seems to be a bit of a positive buzz around United. The players, as you say, were so up for it. The crowd were really up for it. Neville was saying United were going to win, and it was all set up for us to lose, and then for the internet to break. But we didn't lose, and I think we showed who we are in terms of character, in terms of grinding out a win, in terms of having each other's backs, in terms of being able to defend and fight. And this is the sort of game that last year we would have drawn or lost. We had 14 draws, from winning positions, and we also lost a few games from winning positions. So already, that's a real positive take from this. And the fact that they played brilliant in inverted commas and were the better team in inverted commas, and we played crap and they still couldn't beat us. So, there's from just the result and where it could have been had it all gone wrong. Yeah, I'm with you. I'll take all the positives and the performances will come, and that's all that matters. And as we said, it's I don't know, there's something about Old Trafford that it's like kryptonite to us. It's like, we we can't seem to play them off the park and win. We can't seem to, they say don't play the badge, but something different about that place. And even like last year, we played superb in the first half and just got away with 1-1. The season before, when we were battering teams 4-5, 6-0, we got a scrappy 1-0 win. And no matter how bad they are, they always seem to raise their level against us. It's I don't know what is it. There's some sort of hex against us there. I don't know, and we've come from an era, and maybe it's from all the times, it's all the Fergie years that have just sort of seeped into the Arsenal blood.
Even before that, though, right? I mean, Christ, you go back to the Graham years as well. It was, it was difficult then, and Battle of Old Trafford and that kind of stuff. But yeah, absolutely, it is one of those things, isn't it? We don't have a go in there, and maybe there is a little bit of something in the. It's been a heated rivalry for so long, and maybe it's one of the ones that's most fresh in the memory of a lot of this generation of players. Actually, that's playing out there at the moment, because it was, during their formative years, would have been such a huge fixture. Certainly more so probably than United Liverpool was at the time. Our Ferguson Wenger year games were absolutely, the ding dong of the Premier League, and they were the advertisement for the Premier League for a long time, until Chelsea started to ruffle feathers. So, yeah, maybe that is a part of it. Maybe it does get people extra up for it in a way that we don't necessarily see in other fixtures.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of stats. I mean, how is it? We have only won 20 times since the late 1800s at Old Trafford, and only once until today, since 2006. So and this is where, when we go and do our predictions, we're going to go in there and batter them, we're going to win 3-1, they're shit, we're brilliant, and we always forget that we just don't do that at Old Trafford. But I think the way we're playing, but in terms of winning there, the tide is turning. I think Arteta's having a great record there. We have scored in our last 12 visits to Old Trafford in the Premier League, and now I think all 6 of Arsenal's away wins against Man United in the Premier League era has been 1-0 victories. So at least maybe the tide is turning, and maybe it's just going to take a few more. But we're just hoping that eventually we're just going to have that battering where we should be beating them 4-5-0 because they are terrible and we're good. But it just never seems to work out like that. But there we go. But I get one good thing about yesterday. Like, we got the result, but the players aren't happy, and with that performance, and I think we got a bit excited, or someone maybe a bit excited in the wrong direction after the nice, friendly Emirates Cup victory against Bilbao. This was a proper football match, and that was never going to be easy. So, I mean, you're not concerned about the performance, but where were the areas that you felt that were the problems yesterday? What was it that we were failing at? What part of the performance, or why was the performance so poor in parts?
So, I mean, I think they bypassed our area of control really nicely, whilst also putting a lot of pressure on it. So they bypassed the kind of the central midfield somewhat, and used their width really well, and ultimately we never really got our midfield to take control of the game, right? And that's probably the main thing that was overriding for me. Having only watched it the one time, I'd like to watch it again at some stage actually during this week. It's just bringing yourself to do so is going to be a bit challenging. But yeah, I felt that was my overriding feeling from that perspective. They had some really nice overloads in the wide channels a few times. They held their width really, really nicely, so that they had a lot of space on the counter at times. Did mean that they were dragging themselves wide and had to beat men. But there were a fair few times where they had a man on an overlap on a far side as well, because the defence was dragged over, and I felt I was slightly worrying about, okay, the ball needs to be a half worldy to be able to make its way over there, but if it does, there's a lot of free men on the far side on a fairly consistent basis. So that was probably the main thing, was that we were quite often in that position where, because of an aggressive fullback, we're defending with 3 men up against 2 or 3, and we're being dragged in different directions and being pulled very, very wide, and they're looking for those late runners to follow up. So yeah, it was a. I felt tactically Amorim seemed to have the upper hand in this game. If I'm completely honest, it felt like they game planned for us very well. I know that they play that way anyway to a certain extent. They play the 3-4-3, so formation hasn't changed, but the way that they held their positions, the way that they held that width, and the way in particular that they dealt with the control that we normally assert over the midfield, and the way that we would normally be expected to see centre half stepping into midfield and coming up to play the ball, and all of that really was kind of a little bit kryptonite for us. I do also have question marks from our side as well of whether maybe a big part of that is also, I don't want to be hanging him out, but the carrying of the Gyökeres style player as well. The fact that maybe we haven't got that player that's dropping deeper, linking up the midfield, and then kind of almost releasing somebody from that midfield to be able to pick up a slightly different role. Maybe that's a part of it, but yeah, fundamentally, we just weren't really playing our game. Our press was being beaten very well. A couple of times we caught them out, of course, but in general, they did pretty well. I thought against the press, and the moments that looked panicky when you look back, I think weren't really that panicky at all for them. So that went well for them. And yeah, the use of width was really, really good. And for us, I just wasn't really seeing what we were trying to do. We sent out a kind of ostensibly a formation that you expect to see, a group of players that's relatively stable, just a couple of newcomers. But I didn't really see what we were trying to do that was particularly different to last season, and yet at the same time, it didn't have the hallmarks of anything from last season. Because last season, even if we'd have been in a position of a nervy game at Old Trafford, even losing that game, we would not have. I don't think we'd have had this lack of control that we had over it. I think that's the really surprising thing. We've been blunt in attack before. We've been a little bit out-combated before. That happens. You're not perfect every game. I haven't seen us be this uncontrolled and have such a seeming lack of composure in the midfield in particular. Because on the other hand, I thought we had great composure in defence, but we looked very sort of panicky and at odds in the midfield for me.
Yeah, I'll get onto that in a second, because I think I've been looking at it and trying to understand why, and I've got a few points. But I was during the game a bit concerned, and but having looked at it back, I'm not so concerned. But and also it depends. It's what the game sort of ended up being as opposed to what we expected it to be, and the Arsenal that we wanted, and we know, and then that we go and dominate and control and so on. But then when you realise it's not going to be that sort of game, and it's going to be a battle, it's going to be a fight. The way and you're right. I think the way Man United played yesterday and the way they set themselves up, and they were so up for it, and they were winning the duels, getting first and second balls. They didn't give us a sniff. They were hassling and harrying us, putting us off our stride. They didn't let us get the ball out to our wide players much, and I give them credit for that. They just didn't allow us to get our game going. And I guess given the midfield and defence that they have, they had to do that. And then they looked very dangerous going forward, and were quite rapid with that. So I think it was a combination of them playing above themselves, or playing, being really intense and in how they're playing, and us just being off our game. You're right. We lack composure. We lack quality in the final third. We looked hesitant. The amount of times I saw players, there was sort of like a 50-50 ball or a loose ball that would go and then stop and then go, and then by that time it was lost. And I was saying it to my son watching it. It's like, yeah, we're just so heavy. We seem uncertain in what we're trying to do, but and we just weren't really at the races. And so, like looking at it today, I think there was sort of two or three things like in there. Like Zubamendi's going to be key to who we are and how we play. But what an introduction for him. First few minutes, forearm smash across the face, and nothing happens, told to get up, on you go, son. Nothing to see here. And then just the pace of the game, the intensity. I mean, what a way to make your Premier League debut. I mean, he's an amazing player, but he won't have experienced anything like that before. So in terms of, I'm not saying he played badly, but for him to be effective, he's just going to have to get up to speed. And I think you've said it about Gyökeres, and it's not about him, it's about us adapting to him, the runs that he makes, the new way of playing with a centre forward who runs the channels. He's not Havertz who will come deep. He runs the channels, runs the defenders, who wants the ball early. But this was the primary thing, I think, yesterday, was that why it looked, or the next two things, the primary thing, why it looked so a bit different. We're now used to, up till now, our transitions all been very minimal risk about retaining the ball, working the ball forward at such a pace that we then get our rest defence. Yeah? And then that forms. So if we lose the ball, we are set and we'll get the ball back and we recycle. So it's a very secure way of doing it. We're fine. But then it's the issue with that is when we do that, it's harder for us to make the breakthrough because the opposition are set as well because of the time it takes. So we're more secure, but then the opposition secure. And if we want to, and we were trying to be more risky in our transitions yesterday. But then what happens is with the risk is that if you don't execute, all of a sudden you're vulnerable on the counter. And that was what was happening yesterday. That's why we looked so open and so basketball-y at times. That I think in terms of what we were looking to do, we were looking to do that increase that speed, be more risky. We just weren't executing. And no wonder you're going to Old Trafford with the way Man United were playing. It's not the ideal place. It's not like at home to Burnley, you know, where you can get away with a bit more, you can practice. But this is Man United away, and you're trying to do something new, trying to be more risk. But guess what? Then that shows up. And there was a really good article by James Benge in CBS Sports about the pace of our transitions as well. So then again, this is all part of that risk. And all that. So he said, to quote him, during their period of title contention, they have never played at such a direct speed, and the margin by which they picked up the pace is quite remarkable. The 2.02 meters per second they advance towards goal is 55% quicker on average than the last 3 seasons. Okay, the fastest we've ever gone in the last 3 seasons was a 3-0 win at Bournemouth, and that was 16% slower than this. So in terms of what we were trying to do, we were definitely trying to speed up our attack, be more risky, trying to get more forward. It's just that yesterday we were not technically capable of doing it, and it was really difficult to do it in the environment, you know, etc. So that's where I think why it looked so is the fact that we weren't technically capable of implementing the tactic that we were trying to do. And look, I think even Arteta noticed it, said the problem for now is execution. I think there were 7-8 situations where the ball is completely open to play through, and we're attacking the keeper, and we give that ball away, and then it becomes a basketball game. So I think that's where our tactical evolution goes. Is just our quality has to match the intention.
Yeah, I mean, I can get you 100% there, and I think broadly, yeah, I would agree. And I mean, the plus side is that's things can only look up. Nothing looked broken at all. Nothing looked broken. It just looked like we weren't able to do the things that we wanted to do. And sometimes that, you know, when I say I can't see what we were trying to do, that's just sometimes because when you do perform under par like that and you can't get a hold of it, you just struggle to see what those things are meant to be. And some of those things are a little bit less familiar. And I think now that you mentioned that James Benge article, I mean, I can completely see that, you know, the idea that we're trying to force the pace, trying to play to the strengths of some of the players in the team, and ultimately just not able to execute it. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and look, it's only on a bit of reflection today, a bit of just looking around, rewatching a few bits, just trying to gather it. Like, no, yesterday I came away going, that was shit, but we won 3 points. Thank you. Go on, move on. That's the analysis. And so I wanted to sort of, you know, be a bit more, you know, than that, you know, and I wanted to understand it more and look at it more. So I do spend a lot of time reading around, trying to watch stuff, trying to understand it and understand it more, and it helps me. Okay, you're right. It's not broken, and this is why then you go into socials and the way people are like calling things out and all the rest of it. Say, okay, let's have some critical thinking here. Yes, you've got that emotional immediate reaction, and that's fine. We've all got that, but let's like have a proper look. So, there are again, if this was to happen every week now for the next 4 or 5 weeks, then you start to get concerned. But first game of the season, and you just want to win, and teams build into the season. The great Man City teams are built into the season. Arsenal build into the season. You always get these, the Tottenhams that win the October Cup. Great, good for them. Where are they in May, sort of thing. So it's and so on. So it's fine. It's done. Was it
We did
pause
this for
from
the
the
first 4 or 5 weeks of the season.
yeah
Then to be honest, I'll have us nailed on for the title because we'd
yeah
be if we manage to win scrappy 1-0s against
well
Newcastle, Liverpool, and
you'll take it.
then I'll take it. But yeah, it is what it is, isn't it? I get some of the doom mongering in terms of the fact. I think it's mainly just it's an anticlimax, isn't it? I think actually if we'd have got this halfway through the season, off
Yeah
the back of having, maybe if you flip it around and you say we play Leeds first and we get a dominant win at the Emirates and then we go to United and we get this win, the narrative is completely different.
yeah
It's completely different in exactly the same way as well that had United start the season with a shit loss of the kind that they had last season, many times, a delightful number of times, then maybe they're not so positive about their performance. Or maybe, in fact, if they'd have had a couple of wins before it, you go, oh, the bubbles burst. Actually, it turns out they can't score goals against decent teams. The narratives that are formed are because it was the first game of the season and it's stripped of context. And that's part of the issue. And next week, we go up against Leeds. We'll talk about it at some stage, but it's going to be a very different game, and hopefully we stick a few goals away and we start to gain a little bit of attacking fluidity.
yeah.
But
It was interesting. It was interesting what you
isolation of this game, I think, is such a big part of it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But and that, it was interesting what you're saying about Man United and how they respond to this. I found this very bizarre when Ruben Amorim said his side's performance in their 1-0 defeat by Arsenal proved that they can win any game in the Premier League.
I get what you're getting at. I actually agree with him.
Come on, let's take the piss.
No.
All right, imagine if Arteta had said that. Okay, if Arteta had said that, the pelters he would be getting for saying we can beat anyone after a 1-0 loss.
But his context is different. And actually, Arteta didn't say things that were completely distinctly different from that when we were losing games and when we were in his first season. He didn't. And this is, I think...
Go on, we're an Arsenal podcast. Let's laugh at them.
No, don't get me wrong. I'll take the piss out of them at times. But I think for them, this is a very positive match. I think I think a lot of the things that were problematic about Manchester United last season weren't evident in this game. And therefore, for me... I think they can come out of it with a lot of positivity.
Yeah.
And I think them doing that to the established second best team in the league, TM, as we are, as been our brand for 3 seasons now, actually is a very positive thing for them and does probably prove that they can go out and beat other teams in the league because they 100%, I think they can feel hard done by after that game. I don't think that they massively deserved it. If they'd got a 1-0, but I do think that they performed really well, and on the whole, if I was a United fan, I'm looking at it going, Arsenal got away with that, and I have no. So I'm sorry, I'm not the man who agree with you on that one. I do get the time of him saying that after they've just lost yet.
Well, I think maybe
hilarious, but
I think he's I think he's maybe clumsy with his words. I think maybe you don't say that. You just say, look, it shows that we're in contention and we can match. We can go toe to toe, and if something goes our way, then we can win games. So I think it's just maybe a bit clumsy with the words.
Thing for us, let's not take the shine off the fact that we did get the 3 points. We did go to United. Exactly. It is always a difficult place, and actually they were really bloody good. That's the thing, and they can be really good, and they might be really good all season. They've had a really good preseason, and they look like a team that is energized and enthused by the new sign, and probably I think more than anything, actually, it's just they've got a little bit more. They've just had a summer without some of the characters that have been causing them a lot of grief. Some of them actually are. I'm not saying that the likes of, for example, Marcus Rashford, I think is probably he was at one point deemed a fantastic professional. I think he became a part of the toxicity there because of what has happened at the club and his feelings around being let down by lots of people at the club, etc. So I'm not digging out him necessarily, but certainly there have been a bunch of players over the last couple of seasons there causing a lot of issues for one reason or another. They're shot of a lot of those. We know the impact that has. We've seen the impact of that at the Arsenal. We've seen guys that, might not be as high profile, but ultimately were causing problems at the club, and what happens off the back of that. And I think they look like a team now that are a team. It's one game and a good pre-season, and maybe they don't last it out. And there's a lot more for
Fingers crossed
to prove.
But
at the moment, I would say if I was them, I'm looking at it and going, I'm reevaluating how tough our fixtures are, and I might be thinking that we're going to have a better season, and that's fair play to him, Let's just, I'd be delighted. I'd be more delighted than most people if those green shoots turn out to be, just hiding an absolute steaming pile of cow dung. That'd be wonderful.
It's very possible.
Love it. It's been a great few years. I still don't think they'll be better than like 6th, 7th.
No. Look, they can't be any worse than last year. To us, exactly. That's going to be tough.
They'll probably be. I
top
think,
half.
In my opinion, I saw enough of that performance that I think we beat a decent side. There's going to be a decent side this season.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, there'll be a good mid-table club, a higher top mid-table. Anyway, so you were asking about stats. Well, they had 61% possession to our 39. They had 1.52 xG to our 1.31. They had 22 shots to our 9, 7 on target, but they had 0 big chances. So, they didn't. They again a lot of shots. I think the most we've let against us for a long, long time. But there wasn't anything there really significant. And so on and. Their passing accuracy 83% from 393 to our 219 74%, which again is the lowest for a long, long time. And then 10 fouls committed and 19 by us, and so on. And the 19 by us. And this is like, I think Hooper. Let's be generous here. He was a homie. He gave 50-50%. The 50-50s he gave to United. And it just seemed to me like some of the calls that we didn't get, Man United did, but it wasn't the most egregious of performances. But I just felt we were just on the wrong side of a lot of calls, and it was a bit frustrating.
Such a bad name as being a ref apologist, aren't I? But I thought and the main thing was he got the big calls right. So
yes,
I don't really care too much if it's not absolutely egregious, and I didn't feel it was. You maybe got a little bit more, but that's your home advantage in the Premier.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think that was it.
Big calls right, and I'm just delighted that those 2 big calls were right because
that's what matters.
As I agree with the analysis of various people that those calls are right, and those ones that I'm concerned with being the goal and Saliba with the keeper and then Saliba as well for what was their penalty claim. As much as I agree with the analysis of them and think that they weren't penalty or foul, respectively, I think that they visually they were close. Nobody was comfortable with them at all.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And so the fact that he was really quite calm and collected and waved them off, I was quite happy about personally.
I think as game state, you just get frustrated at things. And look, he's no Mike Riley, so that's fine. So
exactly that, mate. Mike Riley's giving that penalty. He's giving that. Saliba's gone. Like Saliba's being accused of being somebody in the head. It's just like it's all going exactly. Off. And like we managed to be down to 10 men, and there's a penalty against us immediately.
Exactly. So look, we talk about the incident. So in the third, Man United started really well. First 10 minutes, we didn't get much of the ball, but as a result of attacking play, I think by Odegaard and Calafiori, we get a corner, and there was a great in-swinging corner from Rice right under the nose of the keeper. And then I think the ball was going in anyway, but you always make sure, and it was nodded in from close range by Calafiori, and look, the keeper wasn't strong enough. He got a soft hand to it, and there was talk of a foul, but nothing doing. And you're always nervous now with the new directives and stuff like that. But you look at it, It was actually, I think it was Shaw that was pushing Saliba into the keeper. Saliba just let himself get pushed there. He didn't do anything. The keeper's got to be stronger, and Raya showed how to do it in the second half. And look, given the new directives, there's a still of two Arsenal players being held round the waist by Cunha and Shaw. So anyway, or Cunha and another one. So surely we would have had a penalty. So I'm joking. Of course we wouldn't have done. But
I mean, I was just calm about it on the basis that it didn't go to VAR. That was the main thing for me, was that if it gone to VAR, I was always happy that it was going to be fine. But if it, I should say that it did go to VAR.
They always check. I think they always check every goal anyway. But it wasn't like, hey, let's
I was
look
always
at this.
happy VAR would be okay with that.
Yeah.
The keeper did absolutely nowhere near enough to make a claim for me, like whatsoever. But it is that moment of the heat. If in the heat of the moment he gives the pen, it's that
not the goal, the corner. We're talking about the corner.
Sorry, gives the foul. I should say, doesn't give the goal.
Yeah.
In the heat of the moment, if he doesn't give the goal and he waves for the foul, it's that usual thing of, I'm not sure that VAR overturns it, sort of thing. That's always the concern. That's actually the concern I have so often. But the
referee's call, like in cricket,
the referee was the fact that he didn't ask. He was totally calm. He's like, no, my decision is this. With both of those, it was exactly the same, in my opinion, for the two of them, where it was always going to be that case. So but you're right. Keep it in, do enough for them. But I thought our corner row team worked great. Disruptions worked really well. Saliba's done a brilliant job there. Not in what he's done to the keeper necessarily, but it's the indirect bit, right? He makes sure that Mount is not going to take him where he wants to put him, and that puts the keeper under the pressure, because the keeper wants Mount to be able to deal with Saliba for him.
But he's not going to.
No, I mean, to be fair, Mason Mount and William Saliba.
Well, I know De Ligt should have been there. They said that in the analysis. De Ligt should have been there, and Mount. But look, we've got so many units.
But I don't know whether they were waiting for. They were expecting a different set piece. Well, their zones around that or what? But
the back post, isn't it? It's normally back post. We've got a new routine. I think this is another thing that
kind of got to be going. You go over there. You go over there. You go over there, and organise them on the right people. Because there's no doubt that was a fantastic mismatch for us to be able to pick up on.
Yeah, and the other thing, having Calafiori there is another big body in the box, which MLS wouldn't offer. MLS would be on the halfway line. So it's another unit in the box that causes havoc. So set pieces FC again, and three of Arsenal's last four Premier League goals against Man United have all come from corners. So Timber, Saliba, and Calafiori. So they do like to concede a corner, and we do like to score a corner. So it's a great match. So then the next thing in the half, I mean, the whole game was not much incident really, but on 30, Dorgo had a nice shot that clips the post and goes wide. I never really saw it going in, but when it hit the post, I went, oh, blimey. And that stemmed from one of our risky breaks. So Saka actually loses the ball in transition, and there's the danger. And 33rd minute, Cunha somehow got through two or three challenges, but he was sort of running away to the side and was knackered. And so it was a bit of a soft shot. And then in the 38th minute, I think this was more for me, this was Raya's best save of the game, was when Cunha wiggled free in the left-hand channel of the box and hit it low and hard. Looked like going across goal, but it was going in, and he made a save really close and low down to his feet. And I've always said this, the hardest place for a goalkeeper to save is low down towards their feet, because they can't react quick enough to kick it away, and to bend down that much to get it away is so hard. And he got down brilliantly. So I think for me that was his best save of the game. And then second half, again there was the sort of overhead kick from Embremo. It went wide. He had that header. I think if you see the replay from behind the goal, it's at a comfortable height and reach for Raya, that actually if he doesn't make the save, you'll be more disappointed. I think the best thing about it was that he cleared it like really wide. And then you said then there was that penalty shout, and for me that was Cunha running into Saliba's foot, who was planted, who was on the floor already in anticipation, and Cunha looked for the foul, so that's why I think he initiated the contact. And then was it towards the end we were looking actually more threatening. Saka's shot from a nice piece of Odegaard play was going in until De Ligt, deflected it wide, and then there was a chance for Saka to go to the corner in the 96th minute, but no, he decided to cross it to Madueke, and the ball just got deflected away. He couldn't finish.
The potential glory, though, mate. The potential glory. It was.
I know, but it's the 96th minute. There's 30 seconds to go. Come on, get your head on. For me, the best thing about the second half were the substitutions, and as I said, I think we touched on this at the team. There's the fact that you can take Gyökeres and Martinelli off, and you can get Havertz, and I think. Yeah, this was perfect for Havertz to hold up the ball. Madueke potentially to cause some trouble. He didn't really get into it. And then you got Timber and MLS coming on for White and Calafiori. And who else can just make such substitutions? That is superb. And Timber was just, Timber was just doing his timbering thing, and it was absolutely solid. He basically locked down the right hand side. Didn't give anything. MLS, you said, was okay. But still, not a lot was happening there, and and I think we pretty much. I said, if you watch it on replay, we had it sort of under control, even though we were living a bit dangerously. But so, any other players you wanted to mention? I think we've talked about Calafiori, Raya. I think Rice. Yeah, he was the only concern. I think something was wrong. I heard today that he got a ball smashed into the face from one of the free kicks or something like that. So I don't know, did that impact him? Concussion, don't know, not fit, not well.
He looked knackered when he went off. I will say that. He took that free kick, and then they took him off straight after the free kick. Right? And he looked absolutely worn to bits for me. So it was and I don't know whether that's just one of those. It's 82 minutes. He takes a free kick. There's a load of close-ups on him, so he just sort of.
He always looks knackered, doesn't he? He looks perma-knackered.
Yeah, I mean that is true. He has got.
It's like Saka's perma-limping. He's perma-knackered.
I mean, he's an Irishman on a hot day, so it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. Nobody else I think played. But maybe a little word for Noni, just that it was interesting to see him on the left again. Which is particularly interesting for me because I think I've said before, I like the idea of us giving him a go on the left. I don't think he's going to be a superstar there overnight. I think he's more comfortable on the right, but I think he can be better on the left. We've seen Mikel Arteta does not always buy a player to. People will talk about you don't go out and spend lots of money to put a player in a position that they haven't played before. Well, that really, because we've seen Mikel Arteta do these things, right? We have two of our best performing players over the last couple of years playing positions that they haven't necessarily excelled in previously. Declan Rice was not really anywhere near as advanced the number 8 as even at the start of his Arsenal career, of course, when he played very much to 6, but certainly at West Ham. Kai Havertz was has played his best football for the Arsenal as a number 9, and so I would not be, and indeed Ben White a right back. We can keep going with a few of these. Actually, there are a fair few. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him play a little bit more on the left, and I liked the fact that he came on there. Didn't do a great deal, but I did like that he held a nice defensive shape. I was looking mainly at his off the ball work,
which he doesn't normally do.
It was the game where he needed to do it, and he did it, and he held a good line, and he communicated with MLS, and that's pretty much what I wanted out of him, to be honest. In that game state, he was not going to come on and change the game at that particular point in time where we had just ceded control of it. Ultimately, it
was a hard game. It was a hard game for an attacker to come into. But, unless you're Havertz, But that's right. He did his job. It's good. And look, just to finish off, that Man United go winless in 6 successive Premier League games against Arsenal. And it sort of stems, can't see the dates, but 3-2 to us, 3-1 to us, 1-0 to us, 2-0 to us, 1-0, 1-0 to us. So, I think we're doing okay against them, even though Old Trafford is a real shithole for us. Right. Anyway, so that's Man U done. We move on towards the weekend on Saturday, 5:30 kickoff, where we play newly promoted Leeds United. So, what are you looking forward to? Not looking forward to as far as the Leeds United game is concerned.
I'm looking forward to seeing the starting 11 because I'm wondering if there's going to be some changes to it in those points of interest places, right? I would not be surprised if maybe he says this is a decent game to give Noni a go. I'd like to see that personally. I obviously there's the question at 9. I would rather that he sticks with Victor again and gives him a go in that game, regardless of whether we think it's a better game for Kai almost because I just think it's the one where he could possibly he needs more game time than Kai probably does at the moment, although debatable, I guess, with Kai having had the end of season that he did. But I'd like to see that happen. I wonder if he might find a way in this game to try and get Kai in alongside him. Not necessarily alongside him, but certainly in the starting lineup in such a way as that we have a couple more focal points to be able to go to. And then it's going to be really interesting to see what he does at those fullback positions, as we've said throughout the season. So looking forward to all those. In game wise, I think, I'm really, really keen to see a bit more attacking fluidity. So how he facilitates that is going to be really interesting. And what I'm not looking forward to would be, seeing any more of this lack of fluidity. Let's face it. So,
Yeah,
I need to not see what we did against United when we're at home against Leeds. I need to
yeah.
see a game that we take by the scruff of the neck, absolutely control, and assert our quality over because Leeds shouldn't really be able to live with us.
No, indeed. In terms of what I'm looking forward to, yeah, an improvement on the attacking performance. We've got another week to get fit, to work on tactics and the relationships. So I'm looking forward to being back in Emirates. Hope it's another sunny day, a few drinks. We'll get you a ticket, and we'll have a nice evening out at the Emirates. Not looking forward to again, like you say, at this stage of the season, there's not a lot not to look forward to, but we don't want another disjointed performance, and we don't want a plucky backs against the wall, newly promoted club Leeds, defensive stalwart performance. So, but I don't expect that. But yeah, so hopefully we'll turn up and do the job. And on your point, actually, I'm the opposite to you in terms of lineup, and so I think he'll go the same lineup unless there are injury concerns. I think he'll have seen how disjointed the Man United game was, how poor in execution of the attacking tactics we were, and I think he'll want to work on that. And I think he'll want to just show me what you can do. He wants those relationships to build, do that together. I think it's too early for rotations. I think he set out his right. This is my starting 11 for now. Is before we get into the busy season. And we need you guys to work to get to know each other better. So
I broadly agree. I should make clear. I don't. When I say those options, I think like one of them is
yeah.
more my point. Is kind
Oh,
of will he
okay.
do one thing that gets us to be
Sure.
that puts us in a little bit more of an aggressive lineup,
Mm,
I guess, maybe, or maybe more of a control lineup. But
mm,
that I don't think I would see wholesale changes at all. I think
mm,
you're 100% correct. What we
mm,
need is to get that team firing. But I also don't think he will have found. I don't think he will necessarily be quite so set on this is my 11 yet. I don't think most managers are in the early stages of a season. So that's where I think maybe just
okay.
one drops in and for me, for whatever reason, I've got in my mind, I would love him to find a space for Kai to play in a lineup in a game like this, with Victor Gyökeres also in the team. But whether he'll do that, I think Mikel and what we know of him, I think you're more likely absolutely correct that it is the
Yeah.
same 11.
Yeah.
But I think
The
it would be interesting to see if he does do any of those things.
the only change I could see is Havertz over Gyökeres. That's the only one. But even then, if he changes that, then he may change the left hand side. So I think it's a domino effect. Again, it's these pods, it's these groupings and stuff like that. So that's what we'll see. Yeah, trying to. I said, well, how do you get Havertz in? Okay, well, you either put Gyökeres left, take out Nelly, you take Rice out. You put Havertz. Those are the only two options, which I just can't see at
You
this
don't
at
necessarily
this
take
stage.
Rice out. You can move Rice to
Oh, then you take Zubi out,
yeah,
and he's
but
not going to do that.
I think you can. I don't see any reason why you can't.
Mm.
I think these are far more fluid
Yeah,
than we necessarily think they should be because the role can change. So you
yeah,
don't necessarily need So I think that the roles of the individual players can be a little different. You might anticipate that you go Declan Rice at 6 and you expect him still to travel with the ball, but not quite as much as he does when he's at 8. And you change how he picks the ball up, etc. I think it'll be, again, I don't think I have the right answers on this because I am not a football manager, aside from playing it on the PC.
On the PC,
It'll be an
yeah.
interesting game, though. I mean, I will say Leeds are, if there's one thing about them, they were, for me at least anyway, from what I saw of the Championship last season, by far the best team in it. And, pretty free scoring as well. So they carried a bit of threat last season, but I would be struggling to say anyone that they've actually picked up over the summer. I know they've made a few signings. They're not players that I think I'm massively fearing. And I think we should be much better than them. So if he does make an interesting change to be able to set us up to be, more in control and more attacking, then it'd be interesting. But I don't think he will. I think you are right because he's just that's the form that Mikel Arteta has.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Leeds, so look, they won the Championship. 100 points with a plus 65 goal difference over Burnley, who also got 100 points but were 12 goals behind. They did score a few. They scored 95 and let in 30 to Burnley 69 and 16.
16 goals conceded
in 46 games. That's nuts.
I mean, I knew they were ridiculous at the back, but that is, I mean, Christ on a bike.
So, that's that. Yeah, so Leeds are back in the Premiership for the first time since 22-23 when they finished 19th on 31 points with a minus 30 goal difference, and that's when they went through 3-4 managers, ending up with Sam Allardyce, bringing in 0 victories after Marsh and Skubala. I don't know whoever that is, but we're there. You said about signings. I think Sean Longstaff, central midfield from Newcastle, is one. They bought a goalkeeper, which I think is needed because their goalkeeper looks like he should be at school, even though he's like about 25, 26, and he just looks so lightweight. They bought Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who on a free transfer. So interesting to see.
Going to give them an absolutely superb 270 minutes this season.
Yeah, exactly. They've also got Dan James, who sort of struggled to make a name for himself at Man United and is sort of just hasn't lived up to the potential that I think that a lot of people had. They got Nonto, the Italian under 21 player there. So we'll see. So look, other than that, don't really know much. There is one interesting thing for you and I as NFL fans is that they're owned by the owners of the 49ers. So given our allegiances, it gives us more reason to not like Leeds on the NFL stakes.
I mean, they all are these days, aren't they? You've got Tom Brady down at Birmingham, and you've got they just all are now.
Yeah, Kroenke with the Rams and whoever the owners of the 49ers are. Yeah. Look, I looked around for some previews from Leeds papers and general stuff. It's all about survival. Of the 3 promoted clubs, I think they seem to be the ones that are favourites. Ellen Road is always a tough ground to go to with every vociferous support and so on like that. But we'll see. Who knows? They're playing Everton at the moment. I forgot about that. And how is that going? You look that up. You look up the Everton.
I'm looking it up. I'm on it, mate. Don't worry.
You're on it.
You've done all the research before the game with your meticulous notes, and I'm just doing it during the game. Although I have got to, before we go, and whilst I do this, look this up, I've got to say, listener, there are meticulous notes done by this man that are wonderful, and that's been through all of this. However, I've particularly enjoyed that where I think he was trying to ask about performance, we've got Perth Romance, which just like when I say it, I'm just thinking either it's a rom-com set in Perth, or alternatively it's like The Devil Wears Prada, but it's with it's set with like perfume makers. Either way, I quite like the idea. It's 0-0
No, no.
After that, yeah, it's 0-0.
Why am I not surprised? If you say, tell me the result or tell me the score of Everton versus Leeds midway through the second half, and I would have gone 0-0.
I'll tell you now, mate. I am going to. If Everton play Burnley at any given time this season, you better believe I'm betting on 0-0. I'm going correct score on that one right away.
Excellent. So back to Arsenal Leeds. So look, the last 9 times we've met, we've won 8, 6 at home, 2 away, and we've drawn 1. So look, we've got a pretty, since going back to 2012. We've got the whatever the word is on them. So given that we've got we beat them regularly. What's your prediction for Saturday 5:30 at the Emirates?
I'm going to go for a convincing 3-0.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We should be doing that, getting out there, and you know what? You said 3. I'm going 4. There we go. I was going to say 3, but in the interest of being correct, I'm going to go 4-0. So there we go. So let's hope for some goals. Gyökeres to get his Premier League, break his Premier League duck. Noni to get a couple, and Saliba to score a header. There we go. And we'll see. So there we go. So Man United done. We don't have to go back to Old Trafford unless it's in the Cups for another season, and I think we're all pleased about that. We got the 3 points. Performances will come at this stage season. I think it's so important just to get the 3 points on the board, and we move on, and let's see how we do against Leeds. So
we're
thank you, Jamie.
Third round of the FA Cup, mate.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't mind if we go there third round of the Cup because it means
round 4, mate, 100%.
Yeah, I don't mind because then I'll get an away ticket and I'll get another point to add to my tally. So I'm all for getting big clubs away in the Cup so I can get a ticket. So yeah, I don't care about the result, just want a ticket. Anyway, Jamie, thank you, erudite as ever. Appreciate your comments.
No worries, thank you. Cheers from me.
No worries. And look, I don't think we'll be back. We'll be back after the. I don't think we'll be back. I was thinking mid-sentence. We'll be back after the Leeds game. I don't think we'll do another show beforehand preview unless something drastic happens to Arsenal. So we'll be back post Leeds, pre Liverpool, pre end of the transfer window. Until then. Follow us on Threads and Blue Sky, interact, comment, whatever you want fancy doing, subscribe, like, etc., all that jazz. And all that leaves me to say is until the next time, come on you Gunners.